right, go live.
Tony Caravan. You've been subjected to a highly sophisticated form of propaganda.
It's just what you need, not what you don't.
Yeah, we're going to start this show a little bit different today. It's Tony Caravan with you for Tony Caravan Live. By the way, this is the other view of the background. So as you can see on the screen behind us, there's the legendary thing. You can see I have 2 bottles of Diet Cola and some ice cubes. Make those out. And then you can see the electronic gear here. And there's even a mixer board. This composer board that's doing some reading. These are my sound effects that are produced there. I just wanted to give you a background look. It's a microphone. The screen. Now I'm going to take you on a little tour. Now I'm not sure how well I got to take the headphones off. I'm not sure exactly how well all of this is going to work out. You know, looks like it might be freezing up. That's my little futon there on the side. A little jazz painting. And so we're going to take a little walk. I got to take the headphones on. So you won't really hear my voice necessarily. So, but let's just take a look around. Yeah. How's that? Here goes. Cat. It's a little dark out here. Leave the Christmas lights on. My printer. My front door. It's kind of dark. But let's go outside for a second. Neighborhood. People out there? No. Entering back into the house. And we're still alive. This is the bar. Bar stool. Bar of renown. All kinds of crazy stuff in the background. Fridge. Let's see if we can go outside. Room. Spices. And there's the cat. And we're returning. We'll save that for future use. I'm going to do bad things to you. I wonder if I'll get a hit for that because it sounds so right. Anyway, that was a 5-minute tour of my
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
Of my house. I was going to go into the backyard and like show you the ground, like put the flash on and stuff like that, but I decided against. I'm going to do bad things to you. The time is 4 a.m. exactly. And
Good morning.
welcome to the show. Tony Caravan with you on this May 14th. It's a Friday, TGIF Friday, and the calendar year 2021. And of course, it's the former United States of America. It's time for the
Weekend weather.
So let's see how bad it is. Oh, it's worse than I thought. Oh my God. Johnstown. I guess at one point it was 36 degrees, but now it's saying it's 45. So the original forecast seems to have been true. Friday is going to be sunny all day long. 66 tonight, 43 Saturday, partly cloudy, 68 for the high and 46 for the low. And Sunday, 68 for the high and 48 for the low. You know what that means, folks? I think I'm going to put those tomato plants in the ground. I'm going to do bad things to you. So anyway, we got me yellow shirt on with the Elvis collar. And we forgot to turn the on-air light on. Let's see if it comes on. There we go. I just ordered a rather pricey, but not too pricey, LED for that. That's going to like make that pop by Sunday. A little bit of a gulp. That's a combination of Michael Jackson's drink and the one named after some doctor that was established in 1885. It was pharmacists. A little bit of trivia for you. Oh, by the way, that was your
Weekend weather.
and moving right along on the morning show. So I'm Tony Caravan and we're having a blast making that mixture. So what do you think of the kitty? You like that kitty? I almost had Chad on. My first shot at this today. I actually had, chat was on. But the problem was I'm going to do bad things anyway. So hey,
Hey, it's me. How you doing, man?
I'm doing fine, buddy. I'm doing real fine.
Okay.
However, then it's got this like I hooked up this Logitech thing I was talking about the other day, and for some reason, it was showing. I got rid of the program. Anyway, I'm going to give you, since I've got this hookup here, I'm going to show you Maggie. Okay. I don't know what this store thing's about. This is working a little bit slower than usual. I have no idea. That seems to be like kind of screwed up. I'm going to show you some pictures on the screen in the background. That was a still I took the other day. That you can make nothing out of. These are some radishes and I don't know, would you call those chives from my garden? Or scallions or something? That's from my garden prior to this like ridiculous cold weather we've been having. This is can't see that. Kale, potato plants, you can't really make those out. Red lettuce. Let's see if we can go back. There's a picture of my bar. Gives you there we go. That was like a few days ago. It's kind of where I sit on that bar that I showed you through the camera lens. And then if you notice, there were some little tomatoes growing in that greenhouse I have growing in a closet. And this is like a quick little tour. This is what the backyard garden looks like. We'll see if we can get this to no, can't do it. It won't show video while I'm doing video. It's like you can't do two videos. But it's a nice idea. Let's go back. Gives you an idea. That's what my yard looks like in the daytime, more or less. See, that door way in the back isn't the door to this house. The door in the back is the door to like my kind of man cave-ish, workshop, garage. It's an old building down the street. Picture of my cat. Picture of those things that came out of my mouth. Fillings from that butchered dentist I had. And it's a picture of me with cigar. Anyway. We'll come back to this in the course of the... oh, by the way, this is my Instagram account. It's like, Tony Caravan show. Morning show starts this way. I don't know if this is... how much visibility we'll get from this, but this is like the kind of stuff. I actually did post that photo, surprisingly. But let's see. It's a picture of Maggie, the AI avatar. This is, well, you can't really tell that because it's too white. Snow. That's another beer. You can't tell that. We're having so much fun here. Nothing's working. Okay. We'll revisit the phone later on. Okay. I'm going to plug this in, keep it charged. Because believe it or not, that took a heck of a lot out of it. And we'll just get on with the show.
I am your main connection to the switchboard of souls. I'm the magic man.
Today's show, if you notice the card, I call it the meme, the Terminator card. You have no idea what's going on. And it's got a picture of a robot. A rather scary Terminator type of robot. And all I did today, if you look down below where I have all my links, is I say, you don't know what you don't know. And the title of the show is Baby, You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet. And there's a bunch of links to my various websites. And for those, I wonder if I can show those. If they will show up. Anyway, that's what I'm looking at. If that came out as a blur, well, so be it. But anyway, you can find a link to my TonyCaravan.locals account where you could actually get the certificate. And we're coming close at the end of the where you earn your doctorate degree online. Doctor of Truth, Ph.D. And that's available for download now at the locals site. All you got to do is give us a little bit of a donation.
Did you accidentally inject yourself with some kind of psychotropic agent?
So anyway, yeah, this is me. It's kind of bright today. I got a white hat and a yellow shirt on. I have a suntanish face in real life, but it's being washed out by the camera. No matter. That doesn't matter to me. It's the vitamin D you get from that matters more. But let's talk about this. Let's get into this. And I'm going to be talking into the microphone. My voice is probably louder than usual, I would think.
Okay.
And you could probably hear a little bit more of the background sounds than maybe in the past. But who knows? It's the morning show. Sorry for the slurp. I literally got up at 3:09 today, Eastern Standard Time here in the what some people are trying to say is the Ohio Valley / Mid-Atlantic states. The Appalachian Mountains run through here, not necessarily the trail, but we have different weather here than most people do. And if my voice does sound a little bit different, deeper, or something along those lines, it's strictly because I hooked up this new device, this composer. Now, whether or not that translates, into something that you can hear the way I'm hearing it in the headphones is a totally different story. I have no idea. But, we'll get to that. So yesterday was kind of a zany, crazy show. I don't know, every third show I kind of get a little bit, off the rails on things. And sometimes it's fun. Sometimes it's just dumb. It's like fun or dumb. And that's the way fun is. And sometimes it's like anything else. It's like, silly is a good word too. When people get silly, sometimes, the people who are being silly think it's hilarious, but like if you walk in on them or you're around them, it's like somehow you don't think it's quite as funny as as those people are. So it's like you're like,
I think all three of yous popped your stoppers.
that kind of thing. But anyway, nonetheless, let's face the facts.
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
Your papers, please.
So a lot of people are worried in the original description. This is the second live show. The first one only lasted, a few minutes because there was like no image. And again, I'm not even going to get on a rant about how YouTube Studio just doesn't know what they're doing. And it's just poor interface. There's a dozen things, at least a dozen things they can do to make this better. They just don't know how to do it. They don't know what they're doing. They're just like I was talking about yesterday, because I didn't really post that show far and wide on social media. It's just like available on YouTube and Minds, for example. And I don't know if people on Minds are going to even read it. So I might pull some of the stuff I said out of that show today, since it's apropos to the title card that I put up. But these guys, they make 6 and 7 figures, and they're guys and gals, right? Or whatever, right? And basically there's more whatevers than there are guys and girls. And they got their Starbucks coffee, and whatever else. These things are right on that. They call them campuses. It's not like they don't go to work anymore in a building or an office. It's like we're going to the campus. And that's part of that Peter Pan culture, like the extension of school and youth forever, So you're 35 years old and you're going to work on campus, or 40 on campus. I have a friend who's in her 40s and she's getting her master's degree. And there's nothing wrong with like education beyond, And if she's watching this, this isn't intentionally an insult or anything, but it's the idea that people either have high student loan bills, which they're going to carry, they're never going to pay off because the jobs won't pay. Let's face that. I mean, unless you're in a profession, and I'm profession meaning like a surgeon, something, a thing like that. I don't even know if there's that many future jobs for good architects, which is a profession. The advertising business is a profession, was a profession. We always consider ourselves profession. I always had an Esquire after my name. But, apart from those, what we would traditionally call professions that pay enough money that you can actually pay off tens of thousands of dollars student bill. The profession, people who get the profession, some of those are, they're 6-figure student loan bills, but at least they eventually, in an ideal situation, make that money. But what I'm getting at is that we're looking at a crazy time ahead that is totally different from the fear mongering that they're doing right now. And that's why I wanted to bring it. And it has a lot to do with the Terminator type of robot. Okay. And we're going to get into that today. But it also, I just wanted to clear out some of this, background noise. And that background noise is that this plague and the what I call eyes without a face, walking around like that. There's my my avatar of the eyes without the face thing. Yeah, that's going to continue indefinitely in one way, shape, or form or another. Testing's become like $100 billion industry. The arm thing is becoming hundreds of billions of dollars. I mean, overall, this thing could be $1 trillion industry. And like I say, we're run by a corporatocracy, and the corporatocracy is really not likely to give up $1 trillion. I mean, after all, it's an organized crime syndicate, and it's run by people who only care about, power and greed, right? Most of them are narcissistic sociopaths with a few psychopaths thrown in there. These are the people that are in power, right? Politics has become pop culture, even though politics doesn't exist. It's a corporatocracy run by big tech, big pharma, the military industrial complex, the central bankers, big ag, it's all this big data collection, World Economic Forum, Davos set, Great Reset, UN, IPCC trying to push the Green New Deal, right? I mean, it's just one big cluster, And so, I mean, that's the reality. There's people that are never going to accept that. We have to come to grips with that fact. People have to get rid of the cult of personality. I got an email. I get emails from both sides of the political coin, or you could call it. And so what I'm going to do is this is going to be hard to see because it probably is not going to want to show up, because it's going to want to show up white because it's bright. Yeah, look at that. Let me see if I can darken this monitor somehow. There is a way of doing it. I'm going to System Preferences. I'll show you how I'm doing this. If you go into System Preferences and hit Accessibility, see that? You can take your display and you can invert. Well, you can do two things. You can enable color filters, which gray screens. That's not enough, though. You can invert. Now that works. See, this is kind of freaky. This inverts everything. Now, what I'm trying to show you here and I'm not sure how this is going to work just right for you. Just bear with me. This will be fascinating. I know I lost somebody already because I'm doing this. I'm going to do bad things to you. All right, let's see if we can get in here. All right, this is an email I got. Save America. Now, let's see. And we'll try to put this sideways and see if we can't read this. If we go in close, is it better? Yeah. Let's try it this way. All right. Let's go across. I just want to show you the absurdity of when I talk about people who are into the cult of personality. Okay, this is the Save America campaign. And it's from the former president with, and now here it is. Friend, are you ready for 2022? You see that? And then it goes on to say 2022 is our chance to take back the Senate and House majority and ultimately take back the White House in 2024. But winning back won't be easy. Okay. Now, I'm going to go back to my controls. And I have to change invert colors back to normal. And I'm going to do bad things to you. And in case you need a reminder of the camera, let's see if you can see that. Yeah. And that was the title card that you apparently clicked on this show for. %. We're broadcasting. And what I'm doing is I'm plugging in that iPhone, which I no longer have a cell service for, by the way, but I still use it as an iPhone. But that's like broadcasting. But it's not taking away. The last time I thought about this last night, and I'm glad it's working, and I'll be able to improve it. So in other words, once I get the color sync down, where I can get, this not looking as, glary. And I just winged this morning. I'll be able to use that as a remote camera and take you around and show you different things live without having to rely on that like people use these smartphones for like Facebook Live or for YouTube Live. Because who wants to be restricted to that? Because if you're restricted to that, then you don't really have the stuff like this.
Did you accidentally inject yourself with some kind of psychotropic agent?
So this is much better. And I have the set, and we're going to work on the set. So we are winding down, and I think, like I said yesterday, we've actually already done 100 shows. It's just a matter of 100 live shows. Now my seat, because of all this activity, is like gone down low. That's better. As Spock said. That's better. Hey, guess what I just did? I mentioned Star Trek. Hey, Scotty. I'm going to do bad things to the Enterprise. Did some guy, one of the guys was in the new Star Trek, didn't he die or something like that? So it's like I may be mistaken, but I read that somewhere. I guess I could look it up. Why not? While we're here. And we'll get that out of the way. We'll get into the show. On with the show. Star Trek actor dies. Let's see. Some guy from the original series. How did Star Trek guy die? Yelchin was killed in a freak accident at age 27 in 2016. Okay, Anton Yelchin. He played Chekhov. Okay. I think they could replace the Chekhov character. I really like the new Star Trek movies, you know. I thought, I guess it was like they were almost better than a couple of the Star Trek original movies, right? Of course, the first Star Trek movie sucked. I mean, that was ridiculous. Vija, won. But anyway, that's that. So I talk about the glamour, and when I mean the glamour, as we know, if anybody's been watching the show at all, it's the witchcraft, the glamour, right? And so they make the perception is distorted. That's what glamour is, right? The witches do this. And they're all witches. They're all witches. So from a Star Trek original series line. Because I truly am a geek, as you have seen from my electronic getup with all these tubes and wires and lights and flashing things. But yeah, I've known some witches, and I've had some weird experiences, in my travels. So, a lot of people want to rule out all kinds of stuff, but it's like being there. You have to have traveled and been around people. And I don't want to get into necessarily like a specific stories and specific people or anything, but I've known at least 2 women that consider themselves white witches, right? Which means they're good. And that there was clearly some kind of abilities they had and some kind of energy and something going on. And in one instance, I had some experience, which was partly had to do with some Native American stuff and sage and cleansing your aura. But there was like an electrical shock type of thing. It was crazy stuff. But, it's real. And it's like magic. It's like what they say. There's that line. I don't know the exact line. I'm not going to look it up. But what to some is magic, to one generation is magic, is science. To another generation, there's some quote, something about that, or that's just the line, the fact, and it's true, and if you go back in time and were to use just some simple piece of technology, you would be looked at as a wizard, right? But most of magic is based in science. And it's just a matter of a sleight of hand or misdirection, right? Or the use of technology in the case of modern magicians. Just that you're not aware of it. It's like even Michael, this has nothing to do with magic, but even Michael Jackson's moonwalk, where he did that thing where he just, like kind of came across the stage. He had like a patent for a certain kind of shoe that allowed him, to do that thing, better than anybody else. So it's So when I talk about the glamour and the witchcraft and the magician's sleight of hand or misdirection, and how the media and the politicians, who are really just the puppets, of the corporatocracy, the organized crime syndicate, that they're using this glamour, this magic, and they're witches and wizards in effect. The operative word, in effect, they're witches and wizards. Not that they're really witches and wizards. It's a true statement. I mean it, and I stand by it. And because I was like I said, I was in the advertising, marketing business, entertainment industry, publishing businesses. I was around all this stuff, and I traveled all over the place. And so I met thousands of people, and I've had thousands of odd experiences, and a lot of them, were concrete experiences in business. And these are just business models. So understand, it's like the same when I was in DC in government, and it's like human behavior and profiling, stuff that the FBI does. This is all based in science, psychology, human behavioral sciences. So it's not as if, to the common man, so to speak, the layman, as they say, these things seem like someone seems like they're almost, bewitching. That's like sometimes in religions, it's like cult leaders and stuff. These are people, or even your like street level con artist, right? Some guy with street smarts who's a con man. These people, when they study they profile these people, they have higher than average IQs, and all they're doing is manipulating somebody's mind. And so whether it's a cult leader or just some con man, or whether it's just some pickup artist, as they used to say, in a bar, that they're using basically actual human behavioral techniques, right? And so when you get into the world of politics and media, well, these guys are experts at it. I mean, they have staffs. They in ad agencies, they conduct studies, focus groups. They have decades and decades ahead. Half of the excuse me. I realize that these noises you can hear anyway, but what am I going to do? But they've perfected it, and a lot of this stuff actually came out of, like I was trying to say yesterday, but I was watching a playback and I don't think it came out. I was talking about the guy with the funny mustache, and people might have thought that's me. Well, maybe this is a funny mustache. No, I meant the guy with the real funny mustache who killed all those people, Mr. Genocide himself, from the early part of the last century. That his staff, his higher ups, I mean, they were experts at manipulation and propaganda and utilizing these techniques. So all that said, I think I've explained it enough. We know that there are people out there that understand human behavior, right? The glamour, misdirection, and that all these things are based in reality. In other words, messing with people's minds, messing with your head. Okay? And that's what the media does. The media and the politicians and the media are one and the same, right? It's all the same thing. Something just popped up in the background, YouTube. They mess with you. They just keep popping this thing up for no reason. So they're messing with you. And people are falling for it, hook, line, and sinker. However, it is misdirection because that's not really the big issue right now. You see, as bad as you think lockdowns are and walking around with one of these things on and eyes without a face, and maybe having the old do this and get these. I don't know if the volume on these are as loud as they should be.
Your papers, please.
Right? Which is inevitable that they're going to be doing this.
Your papers, please.
As bad as you think that is, and is counter to everything that we in Western, or I should say former Western civilization, because it's collapsed. Watch Paul Joseph Watson's, latest video or some of his videos. That guy nails it. And it, people who don't like these long form things where a guy talks forever, he capsulizes these things in I don't know, less than 10 minutes. And it, topical, it puts one out every couple of weeks. So whatever the cult pop cultural thing of the time, that's what's risen to the top. But it's crazy. It's crazy in Europe. It's crazy in, the UK, it's crazy. And the US is just mad. The US hasn't begun to experience the full intensity of what's really bubbling under right now. Now that's kind of what I was trying to get at with the image. How did I have to look at it and word it again? You have no idea what's going on, is what I said. And so everything we're seeing now is just hold back, get the people, somehow conditioned. They're releasing this stuff about UFOs. They're throwing everything at us right now, right? To literally just put your brain through a blender, right? Anesthetize us, scare the crap out of people, and in order so that people get in lockstep, But what's really coming down the pike, and it's going to happen, within months, not years, is that, we're facing unrealistic I don't know how to word this. I'm going to do bad things to you. I bet you they give me a copyright strike for that. Sounds perfect in my ears. Now, what they're doing is, yeah, I got to take a breath. I can't believe I got up at 3:09 today. But I'm kind of semi-happy because I'm happy that I'm able to do this, get this thing to do what it's doing. That's a cool thing. Do you ever, just a quick aside on that. I wonder if this is going to toast my. Do you notice how when you take a camera and you put a camera into a camera? Let's see, we do this. See if I can do it on here. Well, that's me. It was doing it before. What's up, Doc? In case you tuned in late, there's the soundboard. I'm not drinking Pabst Blue Ribbon, by the way. That's just a coolie. There's my ice cubes. But yeah, look at all those wires. Electronics. My sound effects library. Now, what they're doing is that it's all a deflection. It's a distraction. It's a sleight of hand and misdirection. Because what they're doing is replacing people with technology. And that's why some people call it the technocracy, whereas I call it a corporatocracy. And there's not too much of a difference. The difference is, and I'm sorry for clearing my throat. The difference is the technocracy is too limited. The technocracy kind of points itself at big tech, right? Which would be considered, the various social media platforms and would include robotics and some of that stuff. Whereas when I talk about the corporatocracy, that includes the technocracy, right? Because that's a big part of what this idea of, transhumanism, which is absurd. It's really absurd. Absurd. All right. But it doesn't include the problem with technocracy. It doesn't include the idea of central banking and this authoritarian global rule that's really bubbling under the surface. And how are they going to implement this? Because people aren't going to take it. I think I was talking yesterday about 25%. There's some talk about that. And it's probably an inflated figure because I can't for the life of me believe that people could be that idiotic. But someone was saying there was a statistic that 25% of the people actually haven't really left their home since the beginning of this plague thing, except for maybe, going to, a doctor's appointment or something very, very specific, which they were just ushered to a point, went there and came back. These are people not going to the grocery store. And that's why the profits by Amazon, Walmart, and this place I tried the other day, this I think it's called Instacart or something like that. Why their profits were out the roof. I mean, Bezos quit Amazon because he makes $600 billion or something like that. The guy's the richest guy in the world. What has he done? Right? Ran a website. I mean, think about that. People don't think about that stuff. I used to have, at one time, I had 60 some active websites, in the 90s. And I was actually making money on some of my websites. And I was busy doing other things, so I didn't push it. One of the biggest things that, kind of a semi-regret is that I do and I don't regret it, is that I could have gotten venture capital and at one point and got about 14 million for one of the things I was doing. But I was busy doing other stuff, and part of it was not just other stuff, other work, but it was also living life. And so in the grand scheme of things and the way things have turned out now, because I'm happy with my life, even though I live at a level, that most would be technically considered a poverty level. Now it's a poverty level because I just turned down work. I turned down work, and I don't need any more things, and I don't need any more money. I mean, I've got a roofing problem, so yeah, money would be nice for that. So if you got any Bitcoin, send me some Bitcoin or something. But see, then I'd have to deal with taxes. If you're underneath the poverty line, you don't even have to file taxes if you make less than a certain amount of money. So there's a certain amount of freedom you have when you get to that point. And, so I have the garden. And I don't know if you got to see, they just fixed the gas. I've been talking about these trucks outside, and I don't know how that was when I was out with the camera. I'll have to see it in the playback, but where they dug out the sidewalk in front of my house. And then I also showed you that, I think her name is Gretchen Wilson. I leave my Christmas lights on my front porch all year long. And that's what I have. Those are solar Christmas lights. I put them out there about 3 years ago. And when the sun shines, and even if the sun doesn't shine, because it lasts a couple days, those lights just come on every evening at dusk, and they're on till dawn. In fact, they're still on right now. It's 4:44 a.m. here. But so yeah, what I'm trying to get at is I was around in the internet in the days that all of these guys who became billionaires, and I've even crossed paths with them, because there used to be, these big conventions, and I was on the West Coast around the time when Apple was coming back, because they went through that year where they had that guy who was the CEO of some other corporation. I don't know what it was. Was it Coca-Cola, or I don't know what it was, where they pulled in a CEO and they forced Jobs out. And then Jobs finally came back. And then that's when things started, the hum. And I used to go to these things up in San Francisco. They called them Macworld. And they were these conventions they'd have every year. These were in the 90s. And that was like, and then they called you, the people who did that, they were like Mac evangelists. Because there weren't that many people who had Macs. I mean, there was like a million Macs or something. It wasn't really a big number. And, that was a good time. And and the same with the internet. There weren't people really using the internet in the mid 90s. I mean, they were, I was. And we were doing things and we were broadcasting. And I've said we were doing this stuff even, with Apple, because Apple was the audio video computer that had the mic input, the speaker output. And, and they pushed that. They actually had, you could get a video card, not like a video gaming card, but literally a video card, to do videos. And of course they had QuickTime, which they still have. But QuickTime was better back then. They had something called QuickTime Pro. If you paid a little extra, you got QuickTime Pro. But to make a long story longer, these people, Facebook is just a website. Twitter is just a website. And I tell people often, I kind of invented a Twitter version before Twitter ever came out, because it's based on like open source code. And so the whole idea of having this thing, this GUI where you could insert, type something, add an image, right? And then someone could comment and reply down, which is all Twitter is. And all they're doing is like taking it. So that's that's your website. I mean, there's literally nothing to it. So then it just becomes a matter of having the bandwidth and the servers to compartmentalize the various people. That's kind of how AI works. I was trying to show you that AI thing on my iPhone, and the graphics just weren't coming up right. They're doing something. It's it seems the experiment's over, and now they're trying to market something. I used it for my book Codex over here because I was talking with, at the time, the AI that I was dealing with was GPT-3, which was the latest version of AI. And I was having these intense conversations. And they're in my book, and previous episodes of these shows I've dealt with them. But what I'm really getting at is that I'm saying that even Facebook itself is just a simple website. It's like in another way of looking at it, that's copy and pasted, or compartmentalized, right? like they do in the spy agencies, right? But the idea is that it's just individual. It's the same thing repeated. And so you just need big servers, storage, which is cheaper than hell now, right? And then have it all networked. And that's why they call it the social network. Right? And the same with Amazon. I used to have I had a place called well, I don't want to say the name because somebody probably has it. I'll check the name before I say it because I don't want to send somebody to some place. I didn't want to do that. Somehow I got a new folder on my thing. New window. Let me just see here. See if anybody ever picked up this URL. Oh, I never did. Wow. I should buy it back. I had a site called CD Wizard, right? And we had a thing called Wizard Radio too. Wizard Radio. But CD Wizard was basically, I ran that in the 90s, and I took, of course, CDs are meaningless now, even though I have a couple of CDs for sale. Tony Caravan, the essential Tony Caravan, beat poetry. Recommend you buy it. That one's available only on CD on Amazon. Grab a copy. It's good stuff. But what we did back then, because CDs were the thing, is we worked out a kind of a spider algorithm that would seek out any CD, that was for sale. And we categorized them. And we worked out programs. So we had our own code to get, a commission on the sales. And so as opposed to going and we recommended stuff. So it was, it was kind of, it was monitored. It was, I did the same thing with search. All right. Like I had a better search engine than Google, which is why Google blackballs me. Right. I'm being blackballed by Google. Because I got into a fray with people who aren't even at Google anymore. So they don't understand this. I talk about this all the time. And I still have this thing up and operating. But it's like, it's behind the scenes. I would have to give you a URL for you to use it. But there are people that actually use it as their start screen. And they tell me that, yeah, that's what they use, as opposed to using Google. And so in those days, there were a lot of us who were creating things and we had different ideas and certain things stuck, but they all were just websites. So I had a better way of selling CDs than say Amazon does. Right. Because, it gave you ideas and it was like, it was actively being, that's a word for it. I mean, there's a simple word, losing my mind sometimes. Somebody at a gallery is called what? It was overseen, but that's not the word. Forget it. I'm not going to even try to mess with it. I hate that kind of stuff. I hate when you can't think of something. But anyway, it was overseen, edited, there's a simple word for it that's not worth searching out. You probably, if you're watching this, you know what I'm talking about. You're looking at me like I'm an idiot. I can't think of the word of it. But it wasn't just raw. You didn't have to do the search. You could search, but we broke it down. We categorized it. We looked at things. We gave you ideas. and threw you in a certain direction. So in other words, utilizing the medium in a way that gave it its full potential, which meant we basically cared. That's another way of saying it. And it's the same what I did with my search engine. See, my search engine, I realized when I was looking at all the various searches that were out there, and I thought, well, yeah, it's nice that you can have, Google could have give you like 1 billion results when you look for for a certain thing. Okay. You want to listen to some kind of music, or you're interested in a particular sport, right? Result, or a sport in general. Well, the thing is, what are those 1.7 million results about when you're just looking for looking for, say, the college, when college football comes around, people want to check, see the rankings, the college rankings. Okay. So what I did was we took you right. We said, look, people are only humans are humans. And there's always going to be something that somebody comes up with. This is off the wall and it wants to search, and I might do that myself. And we had that ability for you to search something, something absurd, for example. But we also knew, like I always say this all the time, human life, they're constantly trying to make people think that life is more complicated than it is. We're human beings. We have these 5 senses. We're these bipedal, right? Homo sapiens sapiens, technically from an anthropological standpoint, right? I wrote my book about the hard problem of consciousness, the duality of man, this idea that we have a conscious first person brain, beyond our brain, and a human biological, bioelectric brain that controls this androidish body, creative, design, whatever you want to call it. Doesn't really matter. But the fact of the matter is there's a finite amount of things. Humans are not infinite beings in the sense of their interaction on, within this existence, whatever it may be. And I don't want to get into whether it's a simulation, a dream within a dream, or any of that kind of nonsense. I'm talking about whatever it is, okay? Whatever life is, this experience we call life, all right? That's finite, right? It's finite. And humans can do so many things. And so we're not that complicated. It's the same with people who study, as I talked about earlier, study human behavior, right? And the profilers. And that's how they manipulate people, because they know that it's like the Pavlovian dog thing, they're going to salivate to the metronome. That's Pavlov, meaning the dog is going to hear every time it gets fed, or there's a food pellet nearby, they have this sound, right? And so it starts to salivate when it hears that, because he knows it's going to be food time. You're conditioning it, right? And they use these, that's an animal conditioning, right? It's no different than you could do the same with chickens. People train dogs, horses, and people. But people don't like to think of themselves as being simple as animals. But we have that aspect to us, that people can be conditioned, right? That's what propaganda is. That's what indoctrination is. That's why all of these very bad things have happened over the years. right? I mean, there wouldn't be cult leaders. There wouldn't be, con artists. There wouldn't be anything, any of these evil things that have occurred over history and still are occurring if humans weren't, manipulative, right? Just can't talk today. You try getting up at 3:09 in the morning doing a show. Caffeine helps a little bit, but sometimes I think it doesn't. I think I'm better off without it. So yeah, this shows
It's an excursion into the odd and into the very, very different.
But I promised I've got that robot, Terminator robot on there. And so that enough with the background. You get what I'm getting. Humans are conditionable. All right. Human behavior is a science. It's been taken to its natural conclusion. They know everything about you. There's no surprises anymore. The whole idea of the witchcraft and wizards and all that kind of stuff, that's all science now. Okay. You want to manipulate somebody, they know how to do it. Guys like me have been, pretty much resistant to it. But, I can't honestly say that they might not have some kind of thing that they know, something in a book hidden in the Vatican archives that was taken from the Library of Alexandria about something that they've studied thousands of years. Previous civilization, a way of manipulating people, who knows? But let's take the far out stuff out of the picture and let's get back down on earth. The reality is they've created these machines and they've got a lot of them. They've got Terminator robots, Terminator four-legged critters. They've got Terminator tanks, Terminator drones. All right. They've got Terminator satellites. They've got Terminator frequencies. All right. The powers that be, the corporatocracy, this World Economic Forum, their great reset is a goal to control humanity, control population, control the planet. And that's what's being cemented, as I say, right now. And why, when I was showing you that little political letter email, everything I'm doing here, was trying to build up to give you the background on this. Why that's absurd to talk about 2022 or 2024 elections. Whether or not you're happy with the current political climate or you think this is mass insanity, none of that really matters because that's just politics. These people are beyond politics. This is an organized crime syndicate. We're talking about an authoritarian global state. All right. That's what the World Economic Forum is about. You see, the word world. See, sometimes they put this stuff right in your face and people just don't think about it. It's a World Economic Forum. And they're talking about the Great Reset. And people just look at this stuff and it's like, right? No, it's not those. That name is chosen for a specific reason. All right. It's not the, Davos Economic Forum, right? No, it's the World Economic Forum. All right. This is the Davos set. These are the people that are trying to usher in this totalitarian rule, totalitarian police state. But it's not going to be, like I was saying yesterday, it's not going to be with cops or military. It's going to be with machines. drones, robots, all right, technology, the technocracy aspect of it. Big data knows everything about you. I laugh at people who like get these privacy, pay money to have privacy so that someone can't see their URL or their ISP or makes, blah, blah, blah. They have 17 other ways to go around that. They know where you are. I'm gonna be anonymously. Like even on this thing, I don't know if this one has it or it's my other browser, but one of the browsers has new incognito window. New incognito window, right? So that when I'm opening on that one, I'm not trackable. Well, yeah, you could turn off cookies, but then half the sites won't like give you the full experience if you don't have the cookies on. Have you noticed that? And yeah, you could pay for a service that makes it look like you're browsing the internet in Prague. But that doesn't jibe with the fact that the chip in your smartphone is saying that you're not in Prague. Or when you decide to buy some pet food, order something on Amazon, or go to the corner convenience store, or put some gas in your car, that you're tracked in real time, and suddenly they go, well, the dude's not in Prague. And they say, well, who's doing that? Well, nobody's doing it. It's an algorithm. And so your data, that's what big data is constantly profiling you on a minute by minute basis. So there's no way to escape. And then there's satellites and everything else that are beyond. In the 70s, they used to talk about satellites that could read license plates. All right. And that was like 50 years ago. What do you think satellites can do right now? I mean, just people don't even understand the level of technology. They don't know what these Terminator robots are capable of. They really don't. And so, like I said before, in a situation where the people who are going to say, well, I'm not going to put up with some totalitarian state, or someone saying, I didn't spend, 8 years in the military fighting for freedom, to allow them to take away the First Amendment, and the Second Amendment, and the Fourth Amendment. I'm going to fight back, right? And it's like, no, you're not. I mean, that you just join the list of that CD list I listed the other day. You'll just join the tens of thousands of people who commit suicide because it's suicide. There is no way of beating these Terminator machines. And they already have them, right? The drones are already in the sky. The satellites are already up there. Like I said, the current administration didn't get rid of the Space Force, all right, that was established under the previous administration. That was a long time coming, right? What do you think they're doing up there? It's all just spying. They're spying on you and they're spying on other countries. But, the thing between the countries and the whole idea of this global stuff is that they still work together. It's like the WHO, the World Health Organization in China. They work together. So, who is the enemy, right? Is it a board game? It's just a board game to them. and we're like pawns, cannon fodder. We're little markers on the boards, playing cards, disposable playing cards to them. That when look, President Xi, however you pronounce his name, that people pronounce it different ways, of China, the Communist Chinese Party, all right, spoke at the World Economic Forum. I had a picture of, I have a picture of that I had put up, I mean, I could show it to you because it's worth actually looking at this thing. The content. Let's see here. I don't want to waste your time, but it should be. The heck is it? I wasn't intending on doing this. I know it had some kind of name that was probably different than. Let's see here. It's got to be here. Here we go. All right. I'm going to open this up. Move it here. Whatever's going on with that. There we go. You see that? World Economic Forum. This is from this year. That's good old Xi. So, people try to pretend as if, there's this, they're all playing this game. It's like even when they have wars, right? There's still an upper level. There's levels above levels. And the organized crime syndicate, the corporatocracy at the top, the people who are pulling all the strings, there's nothing to do with, what the skirmishes in their minds that are going on. And people don't realize that. It's one of the most horrific things about service is that so many people die because of these socioeconomic, geopolitical little wars that really, they're not about freedom. They're not about, the world is not the way it seems. It's like I say, you don't know what you don't know. And everything you know is wrong. And these people have agendas, like they had Agenda 21, and then they have an Agenda, 2030. It's getting colder in this room. The temperature has just dropped. It's 5:12 a.m. The temperature just dropped a couple of degrees. It's a very weird thing, temperature-wise. People don't realize that. The night it gets cold unless there's some kind of, they call a polar vortex or a dip in the jet stream, something like that. In general, the coldest it's going to be is the moment. We don't have sunrise here till I think about 6:03 or 6:08 or something strange like that. So for the next hour, the temperature is going to drop, and it'll probably get down to like in the high 30s. Which sucks, basically. So what I'm trying to get at, and the average person doesn't see this. So the US isn't, it's the same with the Russia thing, like Crimea. to the average person, they think, oh, Russia took over Crimea, right, from Ukraine. And it's like, no, they didn't. The Crimeans were Russians. They spoke Russian. They were Russians. They felt as if they were Russians. And all that happened was, Russia they just said, okay, we want to be officially, back part of Russia. We want to be Russia. We don't want to be part of this other, manufactured country, that's ruled by, that's been trying to get involved with NATO, and that the US wants this, and that the EU was involved in, and blah, blah, blah. It's the same with, the western part of Ukraine. They're Russians. It's like they don't want to conquer Ukraine. They just want to have independence to be Russians. But you see, it's the EU and the globalists that don't want, to have have independent countries. The reason people hate Russia so much isn't because of Russian aggression in today's world. Remember, the USSR has been over for 30 years. Russia is just a country, right? It's not doing the greatest financially, right? But the people are people. They're just human beings. I've met Russians. They're just people. It's like people anywhere. People just want to live. But, the average person just wants to be happy. The pursuit of happiness is one of the beautiful things about the founding fathers is they nailed it. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's all anybody wants. Any human really wants life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I mean, you can almost say that's what any living creature wants, right? Even a tree, which I talk about sometimes, it's the primary life force on the planet, or the life form. There's more trees and plants than there are humans, and it's like, in other words, we exist to give them the CO2 so that they can exist, and then we're just ultimately fertilizer, for the flora of the earth. So we are self-important, but the reality is all this overthinking and all this talk and this jibber jabbering I'm doing right now is meaningless, because this planet is really a planet of trees and plants, and we're just things crawling around on the ground, fertilizing those plants and creating CO2 so that they could be green. That's why I laugh at the Green New Deal, because they've CO2 is such a part of it, and it's like, hold your horses, man. CO2 is what is the thing that greens the planet, you goof. But speaking of that, so the temperature. The planet is cooling. We've reached a point where we have about in zones outside of the tropics and the Arctic or Antarctic. Okay. In other words, everywhere, the vast majority of places where humans populate, where civilization exists, okay? These temperate zones, these areas that have 4 seasons, more or less, equal 4 seasons, or did. Now have about 6 or 7 months of winter. And they're lucky if they have a month of spring and a month of fall. And those are just, if you put all the days together, you're lucky if you get 30 days out of a spring. I mean, that's how it's been this year. It's how it is last year. I've say this all the time, and I even put it up. I don't just digitally record it, on Instagram and stuff, but I also keep my own little notebooks. you know, 2021, put seeds in, blah, blah, blah. What was the temperature outside? And there's a lot of people doing that. There's all kinds of charts and graphs and science and ice core samples and, you know, archaeological records, you know, ocean, you know, levels have risen, you know, 400 feet in the last 12,000 years. Things dealing with the solar, what's going on with the sun. There's some crazy stuff going on with the sun right now. You know, everything's pointing to the fact that we may well be in this 12,000 year cycle that could occur within the next 20 years. And we could be looking at the sun expelling this outer shell, which is like kind of what they call a micronova. We've seen it happen in other stars. And it appears through the archaeological record that it's happened here on a somewhat regular cycle of about 12,000 years. And that would be pretty much a near extinction event. Now, hopefully it's not that, you know, hopefully it's a minor thing. But we just had a hit. Our magnetic field is very weak. And we just had a hit this week that didn't cause too much damage, but in the data that, you know, was taken showed that our magnetic field on the planet is weaker than we thought it was. And that's scary, because that means if we do get a hit, right, that it could be devastating. And we could be looking at a grid down situation. And in a grid down situation, in a civilization that is so dependent on technology, we're screwed. Or I say, you're screwed if you're not, if you're not someone who can survive that. See, now my biggest worry about that is that the plumbing, a lot of people don't think about that. That everything, I always said, the first thing, forget this infrastructure. We talk about infrastructure. They're talking about fixing bridges and roads and stuff. That's mainly what they're talking about. And that's fine and dandy. I'm all for it. I don't care. But, they should be aware that they need heavy equipment to do it. And that heavy equipment runs on carbon-based fuels. That doesn't run, So the Green New Deal and infrastructure repair, the likes of which are being pushed right now in government circles in the media, that no one's come out and said, well, the two don't go together, right? It's like that old commercial, mixing your peanut butter with something, they don't, it doesn't work. So, I'm almost losing my train of thought here. But what I'm trying to get at is what they should be fixing. I got it. It's in my head. What they should be fixing. And the other thing, the word I was talking about before, my mind is starting to come alive. I guess it's with the caffeine and waking up. I was looking at, in other words, my search engine was curated. So maybe if you were watching that earlier, you were thinking, curated, you idiot, curated. Yeah, we curated our search, and we curated our music site so that it was thought out, as opposed to things now, they have algorithmic curators. And the problem with AI and algorithms, and I study it and I work with them and I communicate with them, because you could communicate with AI now, this GTP3, that's what I was trying to show you before. You can talk to them. And I do talk with, there's an avatar back here. You can barely see this face, the Maggie face. Well, here. See that girl? Well, she's not real. That's an avatar. All right. But that's that's Maggie 2, who is an AI that I've set up, who's basically one of these compartmentalized on a server AIs. So she's an individual, she or it, whatever you want to call it. All right, so I curated that stuff. We got that out of the way. So now we move forward to try to get back to where I was now that I got on that tangent. What were we talking about? What was I talking about? Geez, I hate that. So sometimes I wish I had chat on. So I was talking about the global governance, and my mind is completely blank. I carried that cleaning up that other mind, mind blank, and now I've lost trend of thought where I was right now. But anyway, I mean, there's obviously a direction I'm taking this to, so we'll just go back into it since we'll want to wrap this up within the next 30 minutes or so. So these people that are in charge of things have a clear-cut agenda. And the agenda supersedes anything that we're aware of. What's like anything that's been put before us. It has nothing to do with the plague. It has nothing to do with, the Russians, Ukrainians, the communist Chinese, right? Cuba, Venezuela, people coming over the border, right? Changing the Congress in 2022 or 2024. It all has to do with this overall corporatocracy, technocracy, right? All those elements that basically I call it's like an organized crime syndicate. That's how they operate. They operate exactly like an organized crime syndicate. And that's the type of people they are. And they see us as nothing more than, like, I usually put on, my thing as I wheeze a little bit there. They see us as this, as cattle. And people are just unaware and they refuse to accept this. And I was talking about climate and the sun. I'm trying to get back into this thing. And so one of the biggest factors, okay. So now it's coming back to me. Thank God. So I was talking about a grid down situation. Now, a person like me, I don't live off the grid. What I was trying to say is that in one of the things when they talk about infrastructure that they don't really get at is that the sewage treatment plants and the water pressure that comes into the average person's house, unless you live in one of those old towns or townships that has one of those big things somewhere in your town, usually has the name of the city or town on it. And it's basically a big water tank. And the reason it's up high is because that gives you the water pressure, like for all of the houses. And it's usually fed, it's like gravity fed from a reservoir somewhere. I mean, some are pumped. If it's pumped, you're screwed, because when the water gets depleted from that, that big tank, then you're out of water in a grid down situation. And so what people need to do, the infrastructure that always bothered me is that sewage treatment plants and the way they draw the sewage out and the way the water pressure comes into your house, the first thing they should ever put solar panels on, solar power, you know. I mean, I'm against wind power, those bird killers, because those things are just not practical. You know, there have been guys who invented these round cylindrical things where the like my head would be the wind coming through, and they spin this way, and they're and you could just put them on roofs of buildings and different things. But for some reason that technology, even though it was highly effective and efficient, was not adopted, because I guess GE or one of these big companies decided to make these propeller things that just catch fire, and the utilities just abandon them after 15 years or so. There's so many abandoned windmills out there. It's pathetic. And they ruin landscape, kill birds. And I mean, the whole thing, there's just no benefit to them. Prices of electricity hasn't gone down since they put them out. But it's just a scam, a sham, one of the biggest scams ever perpetrated on the American people in the energy sector, next to Enron. But be that as it may, the problem is that if we do have a solar, and we've had these things before, one was called the Carrington event. We've had these things where, you get a solar flare out, CME, coronal mass ejection, various things. The sun is, is the giver of life on this planet, and is the most potential. It's, in other words, it's the best thing. It's the best and the worst thing. It's the most beneficial and the most dangerous thing that exists, is our sun. Because at any given time, our sun can take away, life, and without it, it's the giver of life. Because without sun, we're screwed. But unless you want to go back to outhouses, the first thing, and I don't, and as I say, the hypocrisy or just the ineptness or stupidity of politicians, bureaucrats, and people who are a part of the corporatocracy and these so-called big tech people. Like I said, I had better search engines and better websites than they did. This interface for YouTube Studios, primitive as hell. All right. They don't know what they're doing. They're more worried about being a social justice warrior and drinking Starbucks coffee, making six figures and going to some, rally or riot, right? They should be putting priority on making sure there are solar panels, backup sources of energy for sewage treatment plants and water pumps and water systems. I mean, that's the thing, right? Because we could live without, if the power grid went down. I mean, I know, if you're like addicted to dopamine hits on Twitter or Facebook and you think all that stuff. I mean, I enjoy doing this thing, but if my computer, goes down, well, first of all, I have these backup power things, and these things last a decade, because this is the second one I've had. I bought like the first generation one of these from a different company. This is lithium ion. It was just basically a car battery wrapped in a, with a handle. But this is a much better, more efficient system. And the same with this, even this radio here, push the wrong button.
The average wind speed was 6 miles per hour. The normal high temperature for today is 68 degrees, and the normal low is 48.
So, this is a NOAA radio, but on the top of it, it has this solar panel. Well, there's a light behind there too, a reading light. But this thing is a solar panel. and there's a crank on there. So, you know, I could get wet emergency, and NOAA's backed up with with auxiliary power. So you could find out for $35 what's going on in the world. If you have one of these things, and they come in various sizes, you know, you could solar charge and have power. So you could actually still run your computer or smartphone, you know, in a so-called grid down situation. But what you can't run is your toilet. See, after a while, it's just going to back up. And who the hell wants to use what do you want to, you know? I mean, that's what civilization is. Even the Romans, what made the Romans were that they had baths and they had toilets, you know? But a lot of people don't realize that, you know? So, you know, that's civilization. And the funny thing about it, when Rome fell, just like I say, it's a former United States. You know, when Rome fell, there didn't, you know, people, apart from people in castles that utilized, you know, slaves, basically, servants, indentured servants, to clean their toilet pots, so to speak. You know, there wasn't, you know, when the Roman Empire fell and the aqueducts and, you know, the whole system they had of setting of using running water and plumbing, when that went down, it was centuries, actually a millennia before. I mean, because in the early part of the 20th century in the U.S., people were using outhouses. It's just like a little quick aside, you know, about how, you know, another way in which these people that talk about infrastructure and stuff, how they're just hypocrites, and really the bill's all about giving money to some political purpose or somewhere. They don't really care, and they're so out of touch and inside the beltway that they're clueless about like science and the sun and things like that. Like they don't know that. And they don't want to believe that. You know, that's woo-woo stuff to them. Like I said, we just had an event within the past 2 days that had the potential that could have done a lot more damage, and that opened up our eyes that we're susceptible to it now. It's like, put it this way, if you're a sci-fi type of person, you're in the Enterprise right now, and you don't have any shields, right? Scotty, I need you to get those shields up. I'm doing the best I can, sir. Well, I need them now. You know, the Earth doesn't have a shield right now. And we're hurling through space in a cyclical time when the sun is going through some crazy changes that, by all accounts on the archaeological record, have occurred, you know, on a regular cycle, which we're in right now. Like it do. And nobody's paying attention to it. So is that why they're diverting us with all these crazy things? You know, these people think they're just going to hide underground. You know, they got their little seed thing they built, remember, up in Svalbard, right? The Davos set. You know, guys like Bill Gates give speeches about depopulation. You know, there's like 8 billion people on the planet, and he's talking about there should only be 500 million. He wants to kill, what, 7.5 billion people? I mean, that's narcissistic sociopath / psychopath. Excuse me. Too much carbonation there. So think about it. they've got the method and means to do whatever they want to do. They've got, forget about armies, forget about traditional wars, forget about all that stuff. You know, the next wars will be fought by robotics, right? Robotic tanks, drones, you know, and the grunts are going to be these dogs with machine guns on top of them, or these Terminator type robots that they're building them. Like, there's the scariest, I've seen them. They're the scariest things you could possibly imagine. And they're virtually indestructible. You could just shoot at them, and the bullets just don't do anything. They're like titanium, super, you know, beyond Kevlar type of protected things. Right? And they're not human, so it's like you don't take out the heart, you know, that they're just programmed. It's like cloud programming things. You can't even take out the brain. There's no brain, right? They're machines, they're Terminators. That's the problem with the DARPA, you know. They fund all these things, you know. And we're living in an era, and most people think it's like the 1980s. They have no clue of the technology that exists. I told my stories about what I knew years ago about stuff. I didn't even understand where our space technology is. It's way, way beyond people's dreams. It's not like that stupid collection of tin cans and solar panels they have, and they call it the space station. That's not the space station. That's not the real space station. That is a space station. But everything's compartmentalized. So people in here don't even know what's going on in other areas. Yeah, it's a crazy time right now. And, you know, and I'm not trying to fearmonger anybody. I'm just trying to get people to wake up to the reality that don't get caught up in this glamour and social networking and media, dopamine hits, and worrying about accumulating friends and all that kind of crap. You know, that stuff can disappear in a wink of an eye. You know, what you want to worry about is your quality of life and living, you know, the classic founding words, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And the pursuit of happiness means having a toilet that you can flush. So I don't know. There's a lot of weird stuff going on right now. And I don't know what the whole game with the UFOs is. You know, why the Pentagon's come out and said, yeah, this is real, you know, blah, blah, blah. After, you know, 70 some years of denial. I don't know why the average person isn't really aware of robotics. Instead, they bring out that woman without a wig on robot. You know what I'm talking about, whatever her freaking name is, who cares? As if that's like the state of the art of robotics. You know, that thing's just that's like showbiz. That's not robots. Robots, what I'm talking about, look a lot more like the Terminator robots. And you've seen those dog things. You've seen those things, those ox type ones, those one big things, those big crazy things that haul stuff. But like I say, they have autonomous tanks, autonomous drones, and satellites that can blast. Because these things are in low Earth orbit. People don't understand that. I did a show once where I showed a picture of the Earth about space junk. what the planet really looks like. If I can get to it really quickly, I'll show it to you. Like I said, I really don't want to waste your time. Let's see if we have space junk somewhere here. Come on, previous slides. Space junk, please. Earth junk, I called it. Okay. This thing's still working? Yeah, look. Okay. Check this out. Let me see how that's, I have to move over so I can make sure you can see it. Yeah, you can see it. All right. That's the planet Earth. All right. And you see all this stuff. You can see my mouse moving around here a little bit. All right. That's what Earth really looks like. That's how much space junk is out there. These are all these satellites and all this crap. People put, even Elon Musk, is putting up like, all these internet type of things. And it's all low Earth orbit, So if you were traveling here, these UFOs that the Pentagon says are real, when they're like coming in, they don't see like the blue marble that, they show kids in school, right? This beautiful blue marble, or the old Apollo 11, photo of the Earth from the moon, right? No, that was 50 years ago. Okay. In the past 50 years, the Earth looks like what I just showed you. It's just covered with space junk. Satellites doing everything. TV satellites, communication satellites, military satellites, satellites for internet, satellites, GPS satellites, satellites for sat phones, satellites for phone calls, satellites, television. I mean, it's just junk, right? And then military satellites and experimental satellites from all kinds of countries. Everybody's got satellites, So it's just another example of like the reality, your reality. You don't know what you don't know. The average person doesn't know that. The average person thinks, oh, the Earth is a pretty blue marble. Not anymore. People talk about the environmentalists. The planet looks like crap, man. They don't understand the state of the art of robotics and weapons of war. They don't understand, like I showed you before, President Xi talking at the World Economic Forum, the Communist Party leader, that it's all a ruse, it's all a big game, that to the corporatocracy, the global elite, the ruling elite, that they're all buddies. It's just like the old line, when they declare war on a country, they don't send the guys who sign the documents declaring the war. Instead, they send, us, right? They send us to fight their wars. And their wars are based on some socioeconomic, geopolitical game they're playing. It's like the old game of Risk, if you ever heard it, like a board game. That's what it is to them. They're just playing games. And then they make treaties and all that kind of stuff as if, okay, it's over. We've signed a treaty. Well, what about the thousands of people who died and lost limbs and all this other stuff? Oh, well, that's all just part of the game, Well, like I said, we're, to them, we're just We're just cattle, cannon fodder. I don't care about that. I don't care about us. We're nothing. We're nothing, nobodies, you know. So, yeah. Good morning. That's that, you know. That's today's show. A little bit more sane than yesterday's was. I didn't even drop use any profanity, you know. Yesterday I was off the rails, you know.
The only station that matters.
This is a nightmare. Must be a nightmare.
Well, it doesn't have to be a nightmare. Like I said, you can survive and thrive through this thing. I just hope excuse me, my biggest fear is them not is a solar problem. That's the number one fear I have. The earth is cooling, so we're looking at crop shortages, ridiculous amounts of unemployment levels, probably 50 million people unemployed within the coming year or years. 50 million people in the US alone. You know, and there's not going to be any like handout of money to those people or anything like that. And then they've got all these services now where you can order a tomato or an onion or a head of lettuce and get it delivered within a couple hours. I did it this past weekend. So it's this like eternal lockdown idea, you know. I don't know. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on, and it's not being talked about. In other words, it's like if you have to think of it in terms of military terms, all right, they're putting things in position, all right now, right? When you're staging, you know, when you're staging a war, you want to make sure you have your materiel, you know, and forces, equipment, and everything. You in other words, you start you want to have everything in place, in position, you know, so that you have that advantage. All right. You know, you don't just like say, oh, we're gonna fight a war. Right. I mean, unless you're dropping nukes or something. So what's being done now by the corporatocracy, this World Economic Forum Great Reset, by these this international crime syndicate that's running things now, is they're putting all their you know, their pieces, their game pieces in place, in position, and getting ready for what their plan is. This plan that they been meeting every year at Davos for, what they used to call the Agenda 21, which was the agenda for the 21st century, but now it's Agenda 2030. So they're hoping that by 2030, within the next 9 years, that you know, everything will be completely great reset to their, you know, to this global rule. And I hesitate to say Agenda 2030 because for some of you that would give you the idea, well, okay, we got 8 or 9 years to really worry before we got to really worry about it. It's like, no, man. No, we're talking dystopian nightmare beyond your wildest dreams by 2030. Okay? Now, this thing is being cemented right now. The pieces, the player pieces are in position. They're cementing it is the best way I could describe it. That's why the 2022 and 2024 elections in the US are meaningless. Elections are over. It's an organized crime syndicate. It's a corporatocracy. The corporatocracy is basically a collection of big tech with their big data, big pharma. All right. big ag, military contractors, the various central banks, and of course the UN, and the World Economic Forum. It's a whole, this that is the corporatocracy. That the world is already an authoritarian rule. And everything now that we have, it's just because we have a lot of numbers at the time and they haven't gotten everything in place yet. But they're putting everything in place. And they've already proven that they could lock us down and that we will be subservient about it. What were the riots and the protests about? They weren't about lockdowns. They were about stupid things like social justice warriors, right? Think about it. There wasn't a revolution against an authoritarian state locking people down, right? People revolted because he called me a name. Or somebody got shot by some cop or whatever, And it's like, okay, that's a bad thing. Nobody wants to see that happen. But the point of the matter is 19,000 homicides a year in the United States, and they decide to focus on one dude or like a couple of dudes and dudesses. People just don't get it. They don't get it. It's all a ruse, man. It's a ruse. And it's, and it's the glamour and it's misdirection. And when these positions, are finally cemented, which I say will be done by this fall, it's all over. It's all over. And everything is wrong. And what you don't know, you don't know. And it's time to wake up to that reality and figure a way to, to pursue life, liberty, being, and the pursuit of happiness, to find, to follow life, liberty, a life of life, liberty, and a pursuit of happiness. It's possible. Like I say, it's not, dystopia doesn't have to exist for everybody. But, it's kind of neat though, having this thing. So yeah, this is my world. That's where I keep my mug and my tricorder flash and, some of the electronic controls over there. My soft drinks. It's getting light outside. It's kind of neat. Turn that off. I'm going to work on that. This is the new, this will be our new thing now that I've discovered that. I'll try to perfect it. All right. Well, good morning. Good morning. 6 a.m. almost. And the temperature, sun has risen. The temperature stayed at about, above me, it was like up down into 37. Here they say it was about 43, but I think we got down into the 30s here too. Again, the weather they give us usually comes from an airport or a building. Keep that in mind when people talk about global warming. It's always warmer at an airport where you got a big black tarmac and jet engines taking off and landing constantly. It's the same in the city. Cities generate their own heat. So when they say, oh, the planet has gone up a degree Celsius, it's like, yeah, of course it has, because you're taking readings at airports and in cities that are a degree Celsius warmer than out here in the real world and on the ground. And that's why I worry most about why we're looking at crop failures. So anyway, just some stuff to think about. We'll continue this discussion in time. And see if I can get rid of this. And I'll talk to you guys soon. So take care. You know, remember,
The only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
cheers. Goodbye for now.